Hey everyone, welcome back to our interview with Curt and Mathilde from Roboto Games, all about their new project, codenamed Project Storm. Let's check it out. That's a lot about the leadership and the social side of Roboto Games. I'd love to quickly ask about the technical side. In game development, things move very quickly. New technologies come up all the time. Like we were saying earlier in the show, the AI is now like the world's biggest technology and opportunity. So at Roboto Games, how do you all stay up to date with the latest advancements to create like innovative game experiences or implement new technologies into your games?
Yeah, so this is one. There's so much information out there across so many different channels. But personally, we spend a lot of time listening to podcasts. I'm trolling Twitter all the time. I follow basically all the game devs. I follow a lot of tech artists as well. There's some really amazing tech art coming down the pipe. And then when generative AI started to poke its head up, now I follow a bunch of generative AI folks. Even though right now it's still kind of early, especially for 3D games. So you can use it for a little bit of brainstorming and creativity, but you can't use it super directly for what we do anyways. But podcasts, Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, you name it. And then we also on our company Slack channel, we have channels for articles and video games that people post all the time. So anything that's related to what we're doing or just for fun, people will throw stuff up there. And so we are, and of course the Game Developers Conference and videos from that. We also one of our folks, EJ, organized a lunchtime get together to watch videos of interesting games industry related videos and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of different avenues that we sort of explore.
Okay, cool. Yeah, like being involved in the sphere of gaming, not just creating games, but also news and technology and networking as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Mathilde, what about you?
Yeah, for sure. One of the ways that we stay on top of new technology and new advances and make sure that we, keep relevant is keeping in touch with other founders, right, in games and seeing what they're doing. So, and I also give props to Transcend, another one of our investors who organized a really great summit last GDC, connecting the portfolio companies. And Makers Fund also had one. So, anything like that where we can talk directly to other founders and see, hey, what are you doing? What are you using? Have you integrated AI into your pipeline yet or not? And if so, in what way, et cetera, is super important. So, in addition to what you can find online, it's also those connections and keeping in touch is super important.
Yeah, it's collaborating not just with your team, it's collaborating with teams all around the world and all different types of teams and people as well. That's awesome. So I don't want to bury the lead here. I do want to talk about your new survival crafting project without going into specifics, because I know that is still under a lot of project names and mystery. Can you give us a teaser or a hint about what the theme or setting of the game is going to be?
Sure, we can. So the good news is there's already some hints on the website. But we probably won't go too much more in depth than what's up there. But we've got a little bit of concept art up there. It's obviously not the final art; it's just concept. And the game's code name is Project Storm. So you already know there's going to be some pretty cool magical storms in this game. They're going to affect pretty much all of the gameplay. You'll see that the art style is also a pretty stylized, pretty what we think is a pretty cool art style that we call sort of the graphic novel style, and so it's going to be a survival crafting game because we've said that a lot so far in this interview already. So between those and also another aspect that we like to talk about is related to projects we've done in the past is it will be fully moddable and also cross-platform. So we have an excellent head of platform whose name is Vijay, and he has made our game completely moddable from the ground up, and you can do quite a lot with that. And so we're hoping that people will experience that, and this can be for making more content for the game itself, but also making full modded version of the game, sort of like a modded Minecraft server. But even cooler than that, or at least we like to think so, because the tools let you do quite a lot of stuff. Sometimes we say it's like as Unity built on top of Unity, insofar as how powerful it can be in terms of the modability of our game. So yeah, it's Storms, super cool survival crafting game, cool art style, at least we like to think so, and then sort of super moddable as well.
Awesome. Mathilde, do you have anything to add to that tease?
Yeah, sure. So our next game that we're working on, codenamed Project Storm, Curt covered it really well, but there's also the fact that it's an open world game, which we are very excited about, and multiplayer, of course, because that is our DNA and that is our mission. So yeah, it's gonna be. It's already super cool, but it will be even better as the months go by.
Awesome. And listener or watcher, if you want to see more about that, the link to Roboto Games is in the description below, so make sure to check that out after the show. Going back to talking about your survival crafting project, how's the development been so far? Like, what has been the most exciting part about working on this project?
I would say exciting and tricky come together, and I will say the storms in particular. They are both very cool and very exciting, but the way that we're going about it is also adds a lot of design challenges, and there's a lot of discussions about exactly how they work, what they should do, how they look, how awesome can we make them. And so that one I think is exciting and also very challenging, because it's sort of something that we feel it's been touched on briefly in some other games. So you see some storms here or there, and they might do a little something, but we're leaning sort of all the way into making them a core part of the universe and having it affect all of the core mechanics of exploration, foraging, crafting, and building in the game itself. So we're trying to weave it in pretty deeply into the world itself.
Okay, cool. Mathilde, what about you?
Yeah, the development process so far has been good, but because on this project we are really trying to learn and listen to the audience, very much so. I mean, we've always done that, but even more so on this project. And so part of that has resulted in some pivots and adjustments, right? Because it's like, okay, we get the answers, from players of survival crafting, and they're telling us, well, your game should be, like this and not like that. And it's like, okay, well, we'd better listen and we'd better make a game that's great for them, because that's what we set out to do. So that's been interesting in terms of the development, and but I strongly believe it's going to result in us making a better game for sure.
Totally. Okay, cool. So the storms sound like they're like a creative opportunity, but also it's really tricky to balance that and stay original. And also getting feedback from others has been very interesting as well, and getting all that commentary. Have you ever felt like whenever you get feedback, and maybe it's something that diverts too far from your original vision, do you ever find that tricky or frustrating or something like that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. So, yeah, if we ever get feedback that, just diverts from our vision, or that, we just can't tackle with a team of our size, or whatever the reason may be, right? Then, but we still want the feedback. We still want to know, like, what do players want, and what would make for a great game for them. And then we want to make the decision, like, hey, we're going to do this, and we're going to tackle it, or no, we're not going to tackle it because we can't, or we won't, or something, it doesn't fit. But yeah, we want we want to make it a conscious choice and not just la la la. We're just following our vision and we don't care what anybody else thinks. That's not being our MO. We do have a vision, but we want to make sure that players will like it, right?
It resonates.
Yeah, that it resonates.
Yeah.
And careful balance sounds like.
Yeah. So
sorry, Curt.
Yeah. I was going to say, how we like to think about it is you have to have a vision. I mean, you can't just come in and I'm just going to make a generic survival crafting game or whatever, right? But then you should start asking the target audience, like, hey, do you like this? And so, for example, we might show them some art early and be like, do you like that? Or do you not like that? And sometimes they'll be like, oh no, some people will say, I hate that and I want it to be like this other thing all the way over here. I'm like, well, if everybody tells us that, then we're going on the wrong track. But if it's just one or two people, then it's fine. It's not a big deal. And there will be people that hate some aspect of every game you make. But we've got some pretty cool ideas, and we, for example, one very big decision that we made, many months ago now, was whether the game should be from a top-down perspective or, from a third-person perspective. And I can tell you one of those two options is easier as a game developer to make, which is the top-down option. But we did see that there was a strong preference among the survival crafting audience for one with, especially on PC, and we want to satisfy all this cross-platform if you play on PC or mobile or console, right? And so that was a big choice for us, because we had to decide, okay, we're going to go after a more expensive, more ambitious project, but ultimately we decided that was the right call in that case. And so you can see already from some of the concept art, sort of the perspective will be from more of a third-person perspective, like say a Zelda style game. So that's an example of something that was like hard to hear because we kind of didn't want to do that, but ultimately we think it's the right call, and looking at the game and how it's shaping up, I certainly agree. Also, storms are a lot cooler when third-person perspective.
Yeah, very immersive and spooky.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's amazing. Thanks for your great insights so far on the process so far on this project. With survival crafting games, I'm sure just saying that name brings up a lot of other games in people's minds. We mentioned some earlier, Minecraft. What are some elements or mechanics that you find the most intriguing?
Phil, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So some elements and mechanics that we find intriguing from survival crafting, I think to me it's the creativity that it brings in players, right? When they're building up their base. And a lot of the more recent games are really giving people more and more and more power to build. And of course, Minecraft, right? The granddaddy of all survival crafting games did that in spade, but it's also kind of hard to use for some players and hard to learn. So yeah, that one I think is really interesting to me personally.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the mechanics, I think what's great about survival crafting is that it really appeals to a lot of people because it has a lot of different elements in it, and yet it's in a relatively small package compared to, say, a full-on World of Warcraft or something, right? But you've got exploration, just finding stuff out in the wild really resonates with people. You're looking to achieve a goal. Maybe you just want to start a campfire, right? Because it's going to be night or whatever's going to happen, and I just need rocks or wood. And you're just wandering around trying to find this, and then I finally found a rock, right? Just that sort of exploring and foraging is really cool. Or you explore and you find this really cool area with some baddies and maybe some cool loot, right? And then, of course, just the crafting itself is really cool insofar as you've got this whole crafting tree. It's like, I want to make that, right? And sometimes you don't know what you can make, but you always want to make that next thing. And so there's just a ton. It naturally gives you these cool goals, and there's something innately human about it too. survival crafting literally comes from when humans were trying to survive and craft stuff, right? And so I think that's it's just like it really resonates deeply for a lot of people. I mean, even if you're just like camping, right? We took some video of trying to start a fire recently with just like flint and steel, a classic old school flint and steel, and it was not happening at all. We were like 30 times in. We've done it in the past, but that day it was just not happening. And so it was, there's something just very human about the whole thing. It's really cool.
Yeah. I've definitely also tried the flint and steel campfire starter. It's harder than it looks. It's not as easy as games. Yeah. But yeah, I love that you brought up the not necessarily like a mechanic, but just the feeling of discoverability and the human part of exploring and crafting and working together to build something. That's something. Yeah, I never thought about survival crafting games. It is a very human type of experience, I guess.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we talked a little bit about the similarities, but let's talk a little bit about the uniqueness. So while you're making your Project Storm, you're drawing inspiration, but how do you make sure your game is still unique and offers a fresh experience to people who have played a lot of survival crafting games before?
Yeah, well, So I think in this case, one of our clear answers is storms, right? And so the storms, as I mentioned previously, are going to make this game pretty different from what you've seen. They're going to be they're going to weave their way through every single sort of pillar mechanic. So exploration, foraging, crafting, building, fighting. Maybe there might be some bosses in this game, and so. That's going to be, we're going to do our best. And our hope is if we do a good job that even if you're like one of these types of people who likes to chase storms or watch storms, on YouTube, you'll get some of that too. And then, as we mentioned, we have a pretty interesting art style. And you can see some of that concept art up on the website, which is still early. It's not done yet. Not done yet. I'm sure our art directors, Stephen Yetz, would be like, it's not done yet. We're still working on it. And then of course it's going to be sort of fully moddable and cross-platform multiplayer too. So I think I believe will give us some pretty cool avenues to explore. But if there was one thing to pick, it would be storms and sort of just how deeply woven they're into everything.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Mathilde?
Yeah, the how to differentiate and how much to differentiate is also always a tricky thing in game development, right? Because you definitely want to give players what they like and what they want and what they're expecting, but also need to be different, because why would they play your game as opposed to somebody else's game? So it's something we think about all the time, and and Curt did give you some great answer in terms of the storms, being in the setting of our world as well, which we can't talk too much about yet. But the other thing that I think is going to be different is how much how alive the world is and how many updates, right, we will give players, and then the cross-platform aspect of it, but we're designing that from the ground up, right? So we're looking at all the controls and everything and making sure that it's going to be good there.
I will add though that the launch platform will likely be PC,
but the goal is everybody gets to play together no matter what platform they're on.
That is the goal. Now, it takes time and effort and money to achieve that goal. So for now, let's say we're promising PC, and then we'll get to the other ones when we get to the other ones.
Awesome. Cool. Good to know. So thanks for sharing so much about Project Storm so far. It does sound like it's going to be a really, really cool game, and I can't wait to see it and try it out for myself. Definitely in the future. But for your game community, we talked a little bit about it earlier, how you incorporate player feedback and making those decisions. I'd like to revisit that a little bit. How do you maintain a strong connection with your gaming community and your community at Roboto Games?
Yeah, so we care a lot about the players and the player community and making sure that we're making a great game for them first and foremost. So we're still pretty early in our community building for the game because we didn't want to start too soon, and then if the game is changing a lot, then it's not as good for players. But we're starting, and and we're starting to talk on all the social channels that you know and love, or that name changes for Twitter versus X, whatever
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
called
yeah.
these days. But so that's one aspect. The other aspect is we actually connect with our players via interviews and surveys, and in the market tests as well, right? So we've been doing that since day one and making sure that, hey, does this game concept even resonate with you? What about the art style? Does that, like, are you more likely to click on this, uh, this art style A or art style B, things like that. And in fact, putting our money where our mouth is we've hired a full-time person, our user researcher, Jen, to make sure that we are constantly talking to our players and bringing those learnings to the team and making sure that we are moving the project in the right direction.
Awesome. Curt, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, handling sort of community feedback and that is something we've cared about a lot. I mean, even in our very, very first product, which was a game modding platform called Playcrafter, which was back in the Flash days, where people could make their own games. There's over 200,000 games made with that platform,
Wow.
and it turned some folks into game devs, which was cool. But even back then, and some of our earliest games, we would have a little text input or a feedback button. It's always there. And so, for instance, now we even get a message in Slack about the feedback that gets put in there every day. So every 24 hours, if anybody types feedback in, it shows up. And then, that doesn't mean we jump on if somebody complains about, I don't know, the color of a button or something. We're not going to go and fix that right away. But if there's consistent feedback that there's a problem, then we'll go and we'll look into it and try to come up with a design solution and try it out, run it by the audience, talk about it on Discord with folks. Hey, we have this idea. It seems like there's people are concerned about this, and then we'll try it. We love to sort of have that player feedback, and we respond to it as best we can with the time and the team size we have.
It's awesome. So you're always taking in feedback, and it's welcome. It's not something that you push away at all.
No, unless people are going to get super aggressive and like start swearing at you, then we'll probably just boot you from the Discord server or whatever it is. But but generally, if it's reasonable stuff, it might be that the answer is we can't act on it right now, or only not enough people are asking for that same thing. It's just you have to be careful in game dev not to just listen to loud voices. You also have to listen to the quieter voices as well, that kind of thing.